Hi folks, Neil here from ECS Coffee, and today we're talking Keurig. And I should know something about Keurig. I've been selling these for, I'm going to say, almost 20 years now, and we have one of the largest selections, if not the largest selection, of K-Cups in North America. So, there are about 8 things you probably are doing wrong with your Keurig machine. We're going to show you those 8 things and what you can do to improve your cup of coffee. So here we go. Tip number 1 is going to be in water. After all, coffee is mostly water. And I've seen a lot of people on the internet saying use this water, use that water. I even saw a guy saying use bottled water. And while it might taste good, the bottled water will in fact destroy your machine. There are dissolved minerals in spring water as well as in hard water that will harden once they're heated up and attach to the heating coils of your machine, which will not allow your machine to heat properly over time. So the ideal water you use is distilled. You'll never have to descale if you have distilled. If not, go for a filtered tap water, ideally, for your machine. Tip number 2 is to clean your machine. And that might sound simple enough, but you do want to keep the inside of your Keurig clean. And very, very simply, it's easy to do. You want to remove this K-cup holder in here, pop it out and give it a rinse. It just snaps it in out of place. And the reason you want to do this is particularly if you're going to be using flavored coffee or hot chocolate inside this machine, as well as any regular coffee. Some residue will build up over time in this. There are some people that say you need to rinse between every brew, and we do recommend that for hot chocolates and for some really strong flavored coffees, but that's mostly so you don't get the taste of the previous beverage in your drink. If you can imagine going from a raspberry chocolate coffee to then a regular coffee, there might still be some residue there. But if you're not doing that, you don't need to rinse it out all the time. Just make sure you give this guy a little bit of a clean. Usually once a week is enough to do. Tip number 3 is about the capsule itself. And there's a couple of things you want to look for before you put your capsule into the machine. For example, if you've ever had one of those ones where you put the K-cup in and it just kind of explodes everywhere, that's probably because of degassing. It's not a bad thing, but coffee roasters are supposed to let their coffee degas fully after it's been roasted before it gets packed into the capsule. And sometimes they don't let that process go on long enough, which turns into a slight pillowing effect on top of the capsule. And this is not a very good example of one. Fortunately, most of our roasters don't do this, but you can notice there's a slight bevel to the top of the capsule there. So bad example, usually they're more than that, but what happens sometimes when you have one of those is you'll pop it in the machine and you'll get coffee everywhere. So to eliminate that, what we want you to do is we want you to open up your machine, and before you close the lid, we want you to push down on the capsule and let the bottom hole get pierced. That will release the air and the bubble, and therefore when you close it, you won't have that mess. The second thing to note is if you have a hot chocolate capsule, like our Jet Setter white hot chocolate right here, you want to be careful with these, because if you think about it, when you made hot chocolate the traditional way, you poured a pouch into a mug, you added water, and you stirred it. You're asking this machine to do all of that in about 30 seconds. And although the hot chocolate is designed for capsules, you want to give it as much help as you can. So before you put it into the machine, give it a bit of a shake, and then pop it in. That will give you the best cup of hot chocolate out of your machine. Tip number 4 is descale, and this is important, especially if you're using hard water or you live in a town or city that has hard water. If you don't descale your machine, it's going to break, plain and simple. What happens with the minerals that are inside the water is when they're heated, they will harden and they will attach to the heating coils of your machine. Your machine will not be able to heat up fully and your coffee will taste bleh. And who wants that? So make sure you're descaling. And although there are people that say vinegar does the trick, you want to get yourself a proper descaler. Keurig does make one, actually. It's not vinegar. We actually like Durgal. It's Swiss made. It is considered the best in the market. It is a bit more money, but you want to buy one of these descalers at your local retailer, preferably us if you're in Canada, and use that in your machine on a regular basis every 3 to 6 months or when the machine tells you to do so. Tip number 5. Tip number 5 is about tea, and actually about hot chocolate too. The machines are designed to brew these beverages, but really most teas require a hotter temperature to get the proper taste out of the tea. Proper temperature being about 212 degrees, which is boiling. Although green teas are a little bit cooler, so you can get away with those. The Keurig machines don't heat to that degree. Coffee is not meant to be brewed at 212 degrees. Keurig machines will brew it around 192. So for a lot of people, tea's just not going to taste the way it's supposed to out of this machine. So our recommendation, stick with the kettle, avoid the tea capsules, and unless you really like them, it's entirely up to your personal taste. But if you're looking for an ideal tea, this is not the machine for you. Hot chocolate, same idea. You can get a good hot chocolate out of this, But at the end of the day, when it comes to hot chocolate, we usually want to add some milk, and we usually want to stir it around ourselves and throw in some marshmallows. Obviously, the machine can't do that. Okay, number 6, 7, and 8 all kind of flow into one, and that is how to get the best cup of coffee out of your machine. Now, Keurig has been making these for years, and they used to have just 3-cup sizes. Then I've seen some machines with 5-cup sizes. Really, if you want to get the best cup of coffee, you want to look at the Specialty Coffee Association and what their metrics are in order to get a good cup of coffee. And at the end of the day, no more than the 8-ounce button is what you're going to want to use to get the best cup of coffee out of your Keurig machine. And that's because it will meet the parameters of the Specialty Coffee Association's Gold Cup standard the best. The other parameters are temperature and bloom time. Keurigs can't get there, but if you're looking to get as close, then you're going to want to use no more than the 8-ounce size. Most of the capsules here are designed for that and no larger. If you're going any larger, you're simply just watering down your coffee. Tip number 7 is to use the strong or bold setting on your Keurig if possible. Again, to go along with number 6, that will help you get closer to that Gold Cup standard as it slows down the brewing process and gives you a better cup of coffee. We recommend that if you have it on your machine to use that every time. And last but not least, number 8, and this is the most important thing you do, is buying the right K-Cup. They all kind of look the same, we understand that, but there's a key difference, and you can tell just by looking at the packaging which one to buy. And I'm going to show you the little trick. See, all capsules look the same, but in actuality, there are different amounts of coffee in each capsule. And if you want a better, richer cup of coffee, particularly if you're going to a larger size, you're going to want to have more actual physical coffee in a capsule in order to have that ratio. Now, for example, I'm going to show you a couple ones here. This Illy, now we know Illy's a little more expensive, but if you actually look on the packaging, it actually says 11.9 grams each. So that means there's 11.9 grams of coffee in that capsule. We did some math where it doesn't actually show it. So for example, this Van Hoot says 228 grams of coffee. That's actually 9.5 grams per capsule. And if you look at this guy here, this other Van Hoot, you notice 211 is actually, do the math, 8.79 grams of coffee in a capsule. So big difference between 8.79 grams and of course 11.9 grams. That's 30-odd% more, which means you're going to get a bolder, richer cup of coffee. So when you're looking at coffees, do not just simply assume they're all the same because of price. Some will have more, some will have others. In fact, the winner in our estimation is Peet's with 13.4 and all of the Berry House that have 13. Those guys give you more coffee in the capsule, which means a fuller bodied cup of coffee when you have a drink out of it. So that's our tips and tricks for your Keurig brewer. If you have any questions, please ask down below. We know these machines inside out. If you liked what you saw, please give us a subscribe and a like, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks again.